Hi, this is Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we'll be discussing whether or not you should actually buy the EVGA W1 600 watt power supply. Is it worth it? Is it trash? Let's find out. Okay, so today we'll be taking a look at the EVGA W1 600 watt power supply. This is obviously from EVGA, comes with a 3-year warranty, which actually, considering the price of it, is actually pretty decent. These have been on offer on and off on Amazon.co.uk and obviously Amazon around the world all the time. There's always offers on pretty much. Recently, we picked this up on Prime Day for just slightly over £20. Normally retail price somewhere in the region of about £30 to £35, although sometimes they do seem to put them up to about £40, but generally you should be paying somewhere in the region of about £30 for this when it's not on offer. Yeah, again, look out for those deals on Black Friday, etc, etc. Anyway, I'm digressing. Should you actually buy one? So there's a 500 watt, a 600 watt and a 700 watt model available, all of which essentially come down to exactly the same design, just obviously slightly different internals. We will be showing you some shots of the internals of this a little bit later on in the video, so if you want to see what capacitors, etc. are in there, then yeah, you will be able to see those, although don't get overly excited because it's not great news. So this unit has got all the usual features you'd expect to see from a branded power supply. So we've got things like active power correction, low noise fan, over voltage protection, under voltage protection, all those kinds of things. Again, I'll put some links in the video description so you can check out those exactly. And also there is a PDF, which I've actually printed out here with all the details on. That'll be linked as well, so you can check out all the specifications, sizes, cable lengths, all that kind of stuff, although we will be discussing that later in the video. So overall, kind of on paper, it does make a lot of sense. And if you look at the market, what is available around that sort of price point, there's varying degrees of quality. This actually is on the Linus Tech Tips PSU tier list. It's a little bit further down, I think it's in Tier D, so it's not kind of going to catch on fire straight away, but it's certainly not recommended for decent systems or high-end systems. Despite the rated wattage on there, I would take that with somewhat of a pinch of salt. It is rated for 49 amps on the 12 volt rail, which kind of is absolutely fine, and is just a snitch under the 600 watts that is rated, around about 588 I believe it is. So yeah, if you're building a cheap budget system, then certainly this is kind of viable. If you're building a system with a decent graphics card, etc., you probably want to look elsewhere. For system flippers, if you just want to put something in with branded name and some high wattage on there, it's kind of going to give the illusion of a decent power supply, but the internals would beg to differ. So let's take a look at what we get actually in the box now. It's no surprise, obviously you get things like a power cable for your particular region, which is included. There's also a set of 4 screws as well to mount it into your case. You also get an instruction guide, which goes through to tell you how to install it and also talks about some of the specifications, and it also includes the wattages, etc. for the 500, the 600 and the 700 model. So with that out of the way, let's take a look at the power supply itself. So the power supply itself actually does look pretty nice. It's finished in a real nice satin matte black finish, which is pretty much the same across all of EVGA's range. You do have an extremely low noise fan in here. It's a brushless fan. It's not particularly great. Again, I'll show you some B-roll of this so you can see exactly what it's like. But I was actually surprised how quiet it actually is. So let's give you a demonstration of how quiet it is. Earlier on, I've recorded some footage of this. Literally, you can hear the clock, which is just over there. You can hear that, I think, probably going to be louder than the actual power supply itself. But let's take a look at that now. So there you go, extremely quiet. So if you're looking for a quiet power supply, then this is definitely towards the top of the list. And strangely, actually, considerably quieter than the W2, which I believe is a slightly higher rating than this one. But anyway, I digress. So on the side, you've got the ratings there on a sticker. On the other side, nothing at all. On the back, you've got a nice ventilated hexagonal mesh. You can see the grill there, the mesh for the actual fan itself. Taking a look inside is not great. So the capacitors it's using are called CapXon or CapXon. I suppose if you're pronouncing it from the Chinese name, they are Chinese capacitors. The main capacitor in here is only at 85 degrees Celsius rated, whereas normally for most power supplies, especially bronze rated ones, etc., you'd be looking at all Japanese 105 degree C caps. So yeah, power wise, it does show its limitations there. Built inside, I've had a look in through. I'm no expert, but it all appears to be soldered quite nicely, and all the kind of cables and stuff are routed nicely. So no real issues there. And again, it kind of is what it is. When you're paying somewhere like £20 for this on a special offer, you're going to expect it not to be as good as a kind of 80 plus gold rated power supply. It just makes financial sense. Something I did notice actually, which I did quite like, which you don't always see, is actually on the grommet here. There is actually like a rubber cable grommet there, which is a nice addition. And the cable in itself has all been finished in the nice kind of licorice style cables, which we'll take a look at next. So the first one is going to be our ATX main power cable. So this is our 20 or 24 pin. It doesn't actually clip on very nicely on the side, so some of you that are lacking dexterity may struggle trying to get that plugged in, but kind of guess it is what it is. The cable itself is braided down through, and all black cable, so no ketchup and mustard here. No real problems there, and it is actually labelled up 20 and 24 pins, so you know exactly where it's going to go on the board, although realistically these days you're going to struggle to plug it in anywhere else. The cable length of this one is 550 millimeters from the end to the power supply. The next cable is going to be our EPS or 4 or 8 pin cable, so this is noted as saying CPU on both sides. Again, there's no way of actually fixing them together, which, depending where your connector is on your motherboard, that might be a little bit frustrating, especially if it's in that top corner and it's really sandwiched in. You may struggle to get both in, so yeah, I would like to have seen that with some kind of locking mechanism. It's not the end of the world. You could put a little dab of glue in there if you wanted to. Obviously, would void your warranty. This particular cable, a little bit longer than the ATX one, so we're looking at 600 mils. Next cables are going to be our Sata cables. So there are actually 6 connections for Sata cables. Now the cable from the power supply to the first Sata connection is 450 mil. Then you've got about another 6 inches or so. Total length for this is 690 mils from the very end. And like I said, you get 2 of these cables, so each one has got 3 connections on. So the next one is going to be our PCI Express cable, of which there are 2 8-pin connections, both splitting into 8+2s, and those you're looking at 550 mil, and then total length of 670 mil. And the last one, the one you've all been waiting for, is our Molex connector or legacy connectors. So on this one, you've got 3 Molex style connectors, the 4-pin ones, and on the end you've got a floppy drive adapter. So again, some devices still to use this, water pumps, maybe additional PCI Express cards, maybe USB 3 cards, that kind of thing. You will still use those. Again, same sort of deal. So 450 mil from the first connection to the power supply, 4 or 5 inches between each connection, and then you've got the floppy one on the end. From the floppy drive to the very end there, you're looking at 810 millimeters. Okay, so with all that out of the way, let's discuss whether or not you should actually buy it. Now, clearly, I've bought one, so that kind of goes some way to telling you if you should or not. It is going to be dependent on what you're using it for, and also, to some extent, the country you're using it in. Now, for us in the UK, we use 230/240 volts, at which point we do actually get slightly better efficiency. So technically, this could actually be re-registered in the United Kingdom, or for Europe, potentially being a bronze power supply, because it does get normally somewhere in the region of about 84 to 85% efficiency across the board, which would give it a bronze label. But because this is a multi-device, so it is multi-power, so you can use it in the US on 110 or 100 or whatever it is over there, so it has got a wide range of voltages it can actually accept. Due to that, it's less efficient when you're using it in America, etc. So for that reason, it's only going to be getting somewhere in the region of about 82, 83 possibly, so it just dips in underneath the bronze rating, but it's certainly well above the 80 flat, which is what you get for the 80 white. So yeah, a little bit confusing. Again, depending on the country you're in, it is going to come down to what type of computer you're using it on. Now, if you're using just a simple APU, absolutely fine, not going to cause you any issues at all. The 85 degrees Celsius capacitor in there probably isn't going to get any real use at all. The fan does seem to do a good job, and just with it statically spinning, there was a decent amount of airflow coming out the back. Obviously, again, depending on your country, if you're in a particularly hot country where the ambient temperatures are really hot and your case doesn't have a lot of airflow, then potentially you could get into a situation where this is going to start getting a little bit hot. Again, I can't accommodate for everybody, but certainly for most of us, I think in the Europe and UK regions where it's a relatively temperate climate, you should be absolutely fine. Again, don't put this with something like an i9. It's clearly not designed for that, and you wouldn't really want to spend that much money on a processor, motherboard, and the rest of your system and plonk in a £20 power supply. It just doesn't make sense. But for moderate systems, I would say anything up to and including something like a Ryzen 5 3600 and something like an RTX 2060 is kind of where I would feel comfortable doing it, and obviously anything down below that. Anything above that, anything with the 3000 series from NVIDIA, graphics card wise, I probably wouldn't risk it, but again, it's down to the individual. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. I think that's going to wrap this one up. It's not entirely doom and gloom. I wouldn't advise it for everybody, but certainly for cheap flip systems or for APU-based systems, I think it's going to be absolutely fine. And it's all backed up with a 3-year guarantee, so it can't be that bad, can it? Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.